Hey everybody, Jacob here from Hainline Manufacturing. In this video we're going to be showing over how to tram a vise in the machine, and I'm also going to cut out some inserts to put on the table to just help with chips and oil and clean the mill out. So let's get started. So we're going to start off with showing how to stone the table, and we're going to show how to just kind of treat the vise before you put it in. We're going to put the vise in. I'm going to show you different ways to get the vise pretty square just off the bat. And then we're going to indicate it, and I'm going to show you how you're going to hit the back of the vise to get the indicator to read 0. So let's get started with that, and hope you guys enjoy. Alright everybody, it's time to get the vise in the machine. So wiped everything off. There is WD-40 still in the ways. So I'm just going to pick it up, we're going to put it in the machine. But first we got to prepare the machine. So we'll do that right now. Alright, so we're going to clean out the T-slots. So we're just going to start pushing all the chips out. When you're setting a vise up, if you're only putting one vise on the table, you want to make sure you put it in the middle of the table. So right here we're at the travel of Y, so I'm going to mark right here. Right there's the end of the X travel, so I'll mark it there. So I'm just going to put the vise in between these two lines in the middle, so we'll say right about there. So I'll put it there, and then I'm going to check Y. So very back of Y is right there. Right about there is the middle for the end of Y. So I just want to make sure that the top of the vise is going to be below this line, and I have enough room so when my tool comes around the back side of the part, it's not going to alarm out or not going to be able to machine it. Because if you put the vise too far forward and you go to rough the back side and you have too large a tool, you'll be past this line, and it actually will tell you before you start the program in Path Pilot. Something I always do before I put the vise on, I'll take some WD-40 and I'll just kind of sprinkle it over the table just so there's some oil between the two surfaces so I don't get rust. So I'll just kind of spray that, I'll let it sit a little bit, and then I'll just take a rag and I'll just kind of lightly dab the heavy spots, but make sure I leave oil on the table. I just don't want rust to get started between these two surfaces, so just adding that oil barrier just really helps keep the rust out. So now we're going to get the vise prepared to go in the machine. So I flipped it on the bottom side so it's facing up. So I'm just going to feel around for any nicks. I don't really feel anything, but just to be safe, I'm going to take a stone across to see if I can feel any high spots. So I'm going to spray some WD-40 just along it. You can spray WD-40 or some type of detergent. So when you're taking the stone across from it, it kind of absorbs all the grit. So I'm just going to move it along. So not really feeling any high spots, so I'm just going to move it back and forth. So when you feel a high spot, you'll actually feel drag on the stone. So when you feel drag, it means you're hitting a high spot. And you can also tell if you move it across somewhere and it's starting to get bright, that's a high spot that the stone's wearing the top of it off. So you can keep working at it till it kind of smooths out. It should just glide across like how I am right now. So that's great. So we'll put that aside. So now we want to clean all that grit off so we don't put that on the table. And it's bad to have that between the two surfaces. So I'm just going to take some acetone. I'll wipe it down. I'll get all the grit and everything out of it. And when you're doing this, it's smart to use a towel that doesn't have any lint or is going to leave little fuzzies everywhere, because if it gets stuck on the corner when you go to put it in the machine, it's just going to transfer those fuzzies onto it. So it's wiped down. I'm just going to take my hand, run across. So you can kind of see if there's dirt on your hand, it means you didn't really clean it too well, but it's really clean. No high spots, don't feel any nicks. So we'll flip it over and then I'll take you in the machine and I'll show you how I put it in. So I'm going to center it up to where it needs to be. And I'm going to make sure that my back jaw, what I usually do is I make sure that the actual back of the jaw, the rear jaw, is a little bit behind where the center line of the tool is, because that gives me about a ½ inch of where I can have room to play. So right about there is good. So now I'm going to get the clamps and I'll bring the clamps in. So when you put the clamps together, there's the T-nut, the hold down, and then the bolt. So you're going to put the bolt through the hold down hole, screw it into the T-nut, and then just when you put it in, you're going to drop it in and find where it aligns in the slot of the T-nut. So we'll just get that to slide in there. So there's that side, so I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. So we're going to put the T-nut in the slot, so we're going to have to turn it this way, and you're just going to have to kind of find until it slides in. So there it goes. So we'll slide it up to the vise. So, and then we can start lightly clamping it, and then we can indicate the vise in. So there's many different ways when you put a vise in to eyeball it square or just get it kind of in the ballpark. So one way is you take your machinist square, and on the back side of the table you're going to put it on the back of it, and then on the edge you're just going to pull it up against it and just kind of square it center. So I'll just kind of put it on the back side and I'll push the vise up against it so I don't see any gaps. So right there it's pretty square from the back side of the table. I'm going to give you another shot of that. So you're going to put the machinist square on the back side of the table, make sure it's all clean, and you're just going to push it up against the vise and square it up to it. So right there is pretty square. So now I'm just going to slide these bolts to hold down the vise over. I'll put the square on my table, get it out of the way so I don't hurt it. I'm just going to run it down. So the edge of this block slides into this lower tab of the vise. So we're just going to push it in, screw it in, and we'll do the same thing to the other side. And we just are going to get it snug with our fingers. We're not going to get it tight. So do the same thing over here. So there we go. So now I'm actually going to open the jaw up and throw an indicator in here, and we can start indicating it. And I'll show you how we do that. So when you're indicating a vise in, you're going to tighten one side, not a lot, just kind of get it tight but not super tight. So that'll work. And then on this side I'm going to snug this one up. So what you're doing is the one that's tight, you're creating a pivot area where this one's loose so you can kind of swing this in. So then we'll hit the vise around and we'll run the indicator across and we'll get it so it's running flat with x-axis. So just having one tight just allows you to have a pivot point, because if not, this whole vise is just going to start moving when you hit it. So this time indicating the vise, I'm going to use an indical and a Michitoyo fifths indicator. I have a tenths indicator, but thou indicator to a 5/10 is just perfect for this. You really just want to get it as flat as you can, so me using a fifth indicator is plenty good. So these indicals are really nice because these fit on a nose of a Bridgeport, but it also fits on the nose of the Tormach really well. So they also make different ones that actually go inside the holders. So like here I have an edge finder in this collet, but I can take this out and they make different ones that go in here and you just tighten it, and it has all this linkage, but instead of having this holder, the shank just goes in the collet. So that's another form of it. You can also just take a indicator base with a magnet, stick it up on the face of the collet, or the collet face nose. Use that, but for today we're using the indical. So when you're putting the indicator on the back of the jaw, you want to make sure that you're just as parallel as you can be with the surface that you're indicating to eliminate any cosine error. Because if I have this sticking out very far and there's a huge angle between these two surfaces, it can affect the reading. So just try to have the tip of this just as parallel as you can, but just make sure it's on the tip of the ball so we can get the most accurate reading. So right about there is about as straight as I can get it. So I'm just going to slowly move my y-axis back and then we'll touch the jaw. I'm going to zero it. Move over to the end and zero it so we can get a full reading. So right there is 0. So now we're going to zip across. So this left side is too far back by about 5 thou. So I'm just going to take my mallet and I'm going to hit the left side of the vise just a little bit. I'm going to zip it back across. There you go, more. So right there, we'll go across. Right there I have it within 2/10, and that was just by me using the square on the back side of this. So that's a great way. So I'm going to show you what happens if it's very far out. So I'm going to kick the vise off 15-20 thou and we'll go through the process again. So I knocked the vise out. So again, this right side is our pivot, the left side's only snug so we can move it. So I'm going to zero my indicator. So right there is 0. So now I'm going to move across the vise draw. So right there I'm very far out. It actually isn't even touching the indicator anymore. So I'm just going to eyeball it. I'm going to go back to my 0 point. So we're a little off, so I'm just going to zero it again. Zip back across. So I'm 9 thou out. So since it's on the left side of 0, it actually means that this jaw is too far back. So in order to fix that, on the left back side of the jaw, I'm going to tap it and I'm just going to bring it half the distance to 0. So I'm going to bring it to about 5 thou, just kind of give or take. So right there's 5 thou. So I'm going to go back to my 0 point. So we're at 0, so I'm going to move back. I just want to sneak up on it. I don't want to overshoot it. So I'm going to go a little bit more. I'll go to about 1 thou. So right there's about 1 thou. So zip across. So my 0 moved a little bit, so I'm going to 0 it again. I'm going to zip back across. So right now we're within 1 thou and 4/10, give or take. So I'm just going to lightly creep up on this. I don't want to overshoot it. So right there's about 8/10. I'm going to move back. Still 0. So I'm going to give it a little bit more. So right there's 4/10. So we're a little bit above 0. We're about 5/10. So I'm going to 0 it again. Move back across. I'm within about 2/10 right there. So now we're just going to very lightly snug these. Don't put a lot of force. Just lightly, because when you tighten this, it's actually going to move it a little bit. So just be very gentle. So we got that tighter than what it was. We're going to tighten this one a little bit more. Now we're going to move back across. So right there we're still on 0, so it didn't move too much. Moved maybe 1/10 or 2 in our favor. So I'm just going to tighten it. So now we'll move back across. So right there it actually moved 4/10. So we're going to have to tap the left side again because it shows it's a little, shows this side a little behind. And I'll tighten this one. So again, the right side's going to be my pivot. So I'm going to get that snug. I'm going to get this just tight, or I shouldn't say that. I'll get this one tight, I'll get this one snug so we can pivot again. So I'll bring the indicator over it. So we're 20 thou, 25. So it's showing that this back side is too far back. So we need to hit this corner to actually get it to turn to move forward. So we'll hit that. We'll just kind of zip it across again. So, can't believe I did that, but I'll show you this real quick. I just kind of randomly hit that, and it's within 4/10, easy. The indicator barely moves, so kind of got lucky on that one, but so that's within 4/10. So now we'll just kind of snug this one. We'll snug this, and we'll just kind of keep zipping back and forth until we can get it tight and make sure it didn't move. So there, it didn't move, so I'll give it some more. The other side, I'll get her tight again. So start getting it pretty tight. So right there's good. So we moved maybe 2/10. So that is indicated within 2/10 of being in line with the x-axis, which is plenty good, and it'll get you where you need to just about every time. So normally I keep my rapid turn on here. I took it off. I also took off the tool holder from the column nose, or from the spindle nose. Don't really use it right now. I used it more for a positioner than a lathe. It works great as a lathe. I'll do some videos about that later, but a big thing is also table placement. So I just have one vise on here. I have another vise. I don't need it, so I'm not going to put it on. But since I have one vise, I want this in the middle of the travel so I have plenty of room. If I were to put this all the way to the edge, I couldn't really work on anything hanging it out because I'd be past the travel. So since I'm in the middle, I have all this free play to move with. So when I had the rapid turn on here, I moved as far back as what I could, so I'd have as much table space. So I had it right about here. So that's literally right at the end of the table travel. But I also had the part sticking out on a riser, so I was able to get everywhere I needed to. And then I put the vise over on the far side. The guy I bought this from had a rapid turn in here in both vices, and there was about an inch between the vices and about an inch between the bottom of the subplate for the rapid turn and the vise, or the edge of the tie down, I should say. So you can get plenty of space if you just work it right, or you can be like some people and get a fixture plate, which helps a lot with a lot of fixturing, positioning. Solder Machine Works makes a great plate. I've looked at their plates before. Great product. There's also other companies out there making them from Tormax. As of right now, I really don't need a sub plate. I don't do that much variety of stuff. Most of it's just pretty simple. I can just either put in the rapid turn and rotate. It's my cheap person's fourth axis, because then you can also use it as a lathe, so that works good for me. But really just a vise is everything I need. I make soft draws when I need, and I just do it like that, and it works great for me. So this job's done. This vise is all trammed in. It's great. Maintenance is done on it. Table's cleaned off. Not much else we need to do.